Joining me is Jack Keane, a retired American four-star general, a former Vice Chief of Staff of the United States Army. He's now chairman of the Institute for the Study of War. General Keane, thank you so much for your time. Vladimir Putin's threats of nuclear war, how seriously should we take them?
Well, first of all, he's done this a number of times. I actually think his motivation here is fear-mongering. He wants to have the West, and the United States and the Europeans in particular, back away from the support for the Ukrainians because he's threatened the use of nuclear weapons. I think when you unpack that a little bit and analyze it, first of all, if he used a tactical nuclear weapon inside Ukraine, it could likely have adverse impact on his own troops, also on the Russian people, given the prevailing winds that may be blowing that particular day. So there's adverse consequences there. But the most significant adverse consequence is he's saying that he would use a nuclear weapon to prevent him losing a war. But if he used a weapon, it's very likely that the United States, for sure, as well as NATO, would enter the war. A nuclear weapon going off in Europe could not be tolerated, in my judgment. And as such, Putin would be exposed to overwhelming air and missile attack that would literally devastate his army on the field in Ukraine and his support structure as well. And it would absolutely guarantee him that he would lose the war. So certainly he's aware of that. His military leaders are aware of that analysis. And I think what's happening here, as I said at the outset, it's more designed to induce fear and get the Europeans and the United States to back off the support for Ukraine to the degree that they've been providing it.
General Keane, with the various very senior commands you've had, you would have gained some scenarios of the use of nuclear weapons. What sort of devastation are we looking at?
Well, if it was exploded in a city, it would likely not destroy the entire city from the blast, but it would be devastating for sure. You know, whole portions of a city could indeed be destroyed, and then there's radioactive fallout from that as well. These are tactical nuclear weapons. They're much smaller than the strategic nuclear weapons. Putin has 2,000 of these. The United States monitors them every minute of every day. We know where they are, and we maintain 24/7 surveillance on them. So if there was any attempt to move them, we would certainly know that has taken place. Putin has those weapons in violation of what was the INF Treaty of 1987. And as a result of that treaty, the United States and the Soviet Union gave up all of our tactical nuclear weapons. And then Putin, a number of years ago, began to develop them once again. And the United States pulled out of that treaty under President Trump. We do not have tactical nuclear weapons ourselves of the kind that Putin has.
It's fascinating, China's position in all this. China's dictator met with Vladimir Putin a few days ago, and it was interesting that Putin publicly acknowledged that China had some concerns about the war. The war started after the two pledged an unbreakable friendship back in the start of the Olympic Games. China's backed Russia so far, now apparently has doubts. It's wanted to use this as a template for its potential invasion of Taiwan. But there again, you've had Joe Biden a couple of days ago for the fourth time saying that if China did invade Taiwan, America would defend it. That's something that's not been American policy, to say ambiguously. And you can't now dismiss it as Joe Biden just forgetting the game book and rambling on. China's been a bit snookered here, hasn't it?
Yeah, well, a couple of things of what you just said. I do think that China is frustrated with Russia. I don't believe for a minute that they're going to back away from their strategic partnership. But the fact that this war is protracted now, and I think it's going to go on not for months, but likely for a number of years to come, And that's not in China's interest. It's not in the interest of the global economy, which China has obviously sincere interest in. And they're having some economic headwinds themselves. And I think they were led to believe this war would be over very quickly. And that's not the case. When it pertains to Taiwan, certainly there are some things in common. President Xi and President Putin both believe that Ukraine and Taiwan are a part of their country, and therefore they have a right to compel it to be a part of their country if necessary. President Xi has threatened many times that he would take Taiwan by force if it did not voluntarily become a part of mainland China. Certainly, President Biden's comments here, I do believe, reflect his sincere beliefs that if President Xi did attack Taiwan, that he would respond in kind and attempt not to defend Taiwan just with weapons and munitions, but defend Taiwan with U.S. military capability. We have war plans in the United States military to do just that. It does take a presidential decision, obviously, to do that. And I think it's President Xi who's really changed the table here, because the Taiwan Relations Act of 1979 postured the principle of peace and security and stability across the Taiwan Straits, and China and the United States were obligated to abide by that. But it's been President Xi who's violated all of that by the intimidation and coercion, and also by threatening the use of force in of itself is a violation. And I don't think there's anything wrong if U.S. policy moved in a direction where President Biden told President Xi, listen, we don't want a war here, but if you do take it upon yourself to invade Taiwan, we'll not only provide them arms, but we will help defend them, and we will encourage our allies in the region to do the very same thing. And I think that makes sense in terms of President Xi's aggression. After all, Andrew, the intent here is really to prevent a war, not get involved in it. We want to stop it from starting. We don't want President Xi to be incentivized in any way by the lack of clarity of U.S. policy when it comes to Taiwan.
It's amazing. It reminds me so much what we're seeing now, the lead up to World War I, threat, counter-threat, who's bluffing, who means it, do we read each other correctly? Are you scared, General Keane? You're a student of military history. You scared?
No, I don't believe that Mr. Putin is going to act so irrationally that he would use a tactical nuclear weapon and lose everything as a result of it. That he knows what those consequences would be. The United States and NATO has 20-1 in terms of fighter aircraft and bombers and missiles. He doesn't stand a chance if the war is expanded. What he wants is to protract the war and break the will of the Ukrainian people and break the will, particularly of the Europeans, and yes, to agree, the Americans, in the support for Ukraine. That is really his objective, and he's waving nuclear weapons to help him accomplish that objective, the threat of a nuclear weapon.
Look, I'm taking a lot of comfort, of course, from your analysis. The one thing, though, that always worries me is that we always assume the other person is a rational player. And sometimes in history you get people who don't, for various reasons, act rationally. Hitler's obviously the standout, and we must hope that Vladimir Putin's self-interest here is kicking in, but we do not know that for 100%. General Jack Keane, always a great pleasure speaking to you. Thank you so much.